685. Use the correct method from problem 6-84 to change each of the following equations to graphing form. Then, without graphing, find the vertex and equation of the line of symmetry for each. So letter A, y equals 2x squared minus 8x plus 7. Kind of just rewrite this over here so we have a little bit more room. Y equals 2x squared minus 8x plus 7. Remember our first step here, we need to identify the fact that this 2 is not 1. Normally when we complete the square, we have a 1 as our coefficient. Let's go ahead and factor out the 2. So we're going to have y equals, and I'll try to color code it again just like I did on that last problem. We're going to factor out the 2 so that we're left with x squared minus 4x plus blank. Actually, you know what? I'm going to hold off on that step here just so I don't confuse anybody, because I've only factored it out of just this part. I factored that 2 out of only this part. I'm going to leave my plus 7 here at the end. So I've only factored the 2 out of here. Now we do need to make sure we're set up to complete the square. I like to do it where I'm going to say, well, I know I'm going to be adding something to each side. So I'm going to say something plus y is going to equal my 2 times the quantity of x squared minus 4x. And we're going to be adding something over in here plus 7. So in order to complete the square, remember, you take half of the middle number and we square it. So it doesn't matter if you take half of -4 or half of +4, because when you square it, it still ends up being positive. So 4 divided by 2 squared. Well, 4 divided by 2 is 2, 2 squared is 4. So the value that I'm going to be adding in here is a 4. However, I'm not going to just add 4 here. This is the same thing as saying 2 times 4. 2 times 4, which means what we're adding over here is going to be 2 times 4. Got to keep it balanced. Let's go ahead to that next step. Let's simplify. 2 times 4 is 8, so we have 8 plus y equals, this is going to be 2, and then this factors into the quantity of x minus 2 squared plus 7. Our last step here would be then to go ahead and subtract an 8 from each side. And we end up with y equals 2 times the quantity of x minus 2 squared minus 1. If we need to figure out what our vertex point is, remember that's the point hk here. So h is going to end up being 2, k is going to end up being -1. So we have a point 2, -1. In which case our axis or line of symmetry is going to go right through the x-coordinate of the vertex. So then we know that x has to equal 2. Now you can check these by graphing them on the calculator, just like we did in the last problem. If you didn't watch the last problem, go ahead and play it. You can fast forward to the end. We check them on the graphing calculator. I'll try to check these ones after we're done. Let's move into letter B here. We have y equals 5x squared minus 10x minus 7. Same thing's going to happen here. We're going to try to turn our coefficient in front of x squared into 1, so we're going to have to factor out a 5 from just these first two terms. So what we're looking at here is y equals 5 times the quantity of x squared. And then remember, 5 times x squared is 5x squared. 5 times what is negative 10x? That would be minus 2x. And then we have minus 7 out here. Next step, we're going to be adding something to both sides. I always do this myself just so that I don't forget to. So I've got x squared minus 2x plus blank minus 7 again. Okay, so if I'm going to complete the square, I have to take half of my middle term here. I'm going to say 2 divided by 2, and then I'm going to square it, which is an easy one to do because 2 divided by 2 is 1, 1 squared is 1. So that means the value I'm adding inside the parentheses is 1, but overall I'm really adding 5 times 1. So I'm saying 5 times 1 on this side. When I do that, 5 times 1 is going to end up being 5. So I've got 5 plus y equals 5 times, what is this become when it's factored? It should be, and this should be an easy one for you, x minus 1 squared. And then we're subtracting 7, which leads us to our last step, and that is going to be where we get y by itself. Let's subtract 5. Let's subtract 5. And we get y is equal to 5 times the quantity of x minus 1 squared minus 12. Vertex, gotta look for hk. Remember, this is always x minus h, so h has to be 1. And our k has to be negative 12. So our vertex is at the point 1, negative 12, which makes our axis of symmetry that runs right through this x coordinate x equals 1. Remember, that's an equation for a line, a vertical line. All right, so for time's sake, I am going to hold off on actually graphing these all on the calculator. I showed you in the last problem in case you needed to see it here, but I don't want to make this video super duper way too long. So once again, y equals 2 times the quantity of x minus 2 squared minus 1. Y equals 5 times the quantity of x minus 1 squared minus 12. And your vertex points and axis of symmetry for each of these two functions. This is problem 6-85. I appreciate you watching. Hope this helped.